Welcome back to the French Rugby Podcast with me, Tim Groves, former Clermont and France hooker Benjamin Kaiser, and ex-Bayonne, Montpellier, Cast, back row, and now modern day Nostradamus, Johnny Beattie. Let's get it out of the way, shall we, Benji? Let Johnny bask in the glory for a minute. You got pretty much everything spot on in the final round of the top 14, didn't you, Johnny? Predicted where every single one of that top six was going to finish. So did you have any money on it?
No, then I'd be in a Howley situation. I'd be banned, mate. No, just enjoyed it. I just really enjoyed watching the games. I think also the nicest part now, being retired, is that you can actually properly enjoy it. I was sat in front of my TV, absolute drama as the games unfolded, because there was something riding on pretty much every single game, and it was exciting. It was so exciting to watch. The way they do it in France is they have a multiplex, so you have one game shown, but whenever there's a point scored anywhere, a bell rings, and then it jumps to that game 5 seconds later. So it just kept going. Tries everywhere, excitement, and there was so much riding on it for so many teams. So yes, I am smug that I got it right, but more importantly, I think just really enjoyed watching the games. It was a great weekend of rugby.
So a good week for Johnny on the predictions from Benji, but good week for you?
Mate, listen, the only one, because I tried to make sure that Johnny could still go to the restaurant at the weekend and be happy and stuff, is I tried to predict that Bayonne was going to smoke them. And to be fair, it was a mega tight one. I think Stade only took the lead 71st minute or something like that, whatever. It wasn't one of those mega tight games. The one performance that none of us saw coming is how Toulouse absolutely destroyed Bordeaux. And fair play to them, mate. It just repeats that how we keep on repeating ourselves and saying precisely the same thing week in, week out. But bloody hell, when they turn it on, Toulouse, they're pretty tough to stop. Julien Marchand was back, and I was delighted to see him there, getting at least one game under his belt, because then Racing, because they smoked Brive, would have stolen one of those two spots, and La Rochelle kicked a last minute, not a last minute, but like a penalty 5 minutes before the end that got them just a defensive bonus point, where, to be fair, Clermont played a pretty solid game of destroying them out how do you say that? They were taken physically, they out-muscled them. That's what I wanted to use. And they really did well. But yeah, no, so the predictions, to be fair, were tough. Johnny got them spot on. After the French test, I just need to admit that I let my heart speak too much, and that sometimes you need to be calm and controlled and weathered. And Johnny did that beautifully, and he deserves those 2 wins. And he deserves that, absolutely no problem.
Do you know, weirdly though, you talk about the Toulouse game, there's loads of things that I didn't know going into the game. For instance, that Bordeaux didn't need any change to anything to have a home quarterfinals. They didn't care. So Urios left Jalibert on the bench. There was loads of different things that came into that game that we didn't really think about beforehand, because they didn't need to. And he obviously was devastated, and he's completely shat on them in the press this week because they said it was a really, really crap game. But I think if Bordeaux had stuck Jalibert from the start, maybe it's a different game. A couple of different key people, if they started them from the get-go, would have been different. But generally, just the excitement of every single game, it was just so good to watch. Amazing rugby, quality stuff, right to the last minute in so many games. And I'm sure we'll dig into them now, Tim. But a quality weekend of top 14 rugby.
Well, let's get into that final round in a bit more detail then. And we've mentioned the top a little bit. We've mentioned the bottom, but let's get into Bayonne, Johnny. It was tough for them, wasn't it? They lost narrowly at home to Stade Francais, but they were staying up right until that final moment when, in the Pau Montpellier game, when Adam Phillip went over to get Pau a bonus point.
Look, it was kind of cruel, but a reflection of where they are, if that's right. I figured they needed 1 point from I thought Stade Francais would win, and it'd be more convincing than that, but I thought they needed 1 point. And if they got that 1 point, it allowed Pau to win, but Pau could not get a bonus point. Because as soon as they ended up on level pegging, the head-to-head came in, and it was Bayonne that went down. And then as the game started, Stade Francais, because they've got their GIF numbers are still off, so they couldn't have Nicolas Sanchez, they couldn't have Kremer, they were missing a few big guys, and they had to leave them out. But just as the game went on, Yori Sekons had an absolute shocker with the boot. I think he missed 12 or 15 points. And just as it kept wearing on, you were thinking, Bayonne have got this. They didn't offer much in attack, but they were heroic in defense, like a sort of boxer against the ropes. Every time Stade Francais got into 22, they've come up with a massive turnover. bundled them into touch. There was a maul try that was disallowed for holding them up. There was just so much that they did to get out of jail last minute. And I thought, they've done this much. They kind of deserve to stay up. They were drawing 9-9 until the 70-something minute and then one penalty. And that's it. So they would have had 2 points for drawing the game. And then it's lost. You've got a losing bonus point. That's it. You then flick over to Pau, who stormed ahead. I think they scored 2 or 3 tries in the first 20 minutes. And you're thinking, right, Montpellier have got no interest. Absolutely none. But fair play to them. Nothing to play for. They came back and made it a real game. Some exceptional tries scored. And as you said, the last touch of the game, I was screaming at my TV. The last touch of the game, a cross-field kick as well. Like, of all things, it was a cross-field kick that seals it for Pau. Totally ridiculous percentage play that normally doesn't come off, and it comes off for them, and they stay up in top 14, and it's absolutely huge. So look, they went out and they fought for it, and they got their 5 points, and that head-to-head means that they guarantee top 14 survival, and unfortunately that means that Bayonne now have to go into a fairly tasty playoff this weekend, which I'm sure we'll talk about again, but just cruel, even though they plugged away, cruel that they find themselves in this situation after winning away. Like, if you look back at the season, winning away at Racing, winning away at Stade Francais, I think, winning away at Toulon, but then just not backing up at home, slipping up a couple of times. And it's probably a fair reflection of the season. But yeah, a horrible game to lose in that manner last minute, and now a horrible playoff game to go.
But you said it already. It's incredibly tense top 14. Listen, this is the reason why this Premiership is just so special. Why the emotions get out of it. It's because for one, the French, we base everything on the emotion, on the heart. And that's how we get to incredible highs most of the time. And you try to represent proudly the area. And you mentioned those things. Pau, I mean, listen, Pau was huge in France because of basketball, and they were incredible a couple of seasons ago. It's the land of it's the siège social for it's the center of Total. So a huge company, and then it's rugby, absolutely massive around it. So it's like a regional pride. It's a regional importance to make sure that the club stays. And that's when you see at the end, I mean, the amount of clubs where it does get a little bit ridiculous, to be honest, where nobody's allowed in the stands because top 14 decided that it's Canal Plus who decides on everything. And for the last game of the season, they put all the games at 8:45 when there's a 9 o'clock curfew in France. That for me is a shocking thing to do. It should have never happened, but that's what they decided, because Canal Plus will decide that it's not about the fans. It's about money. Clearly, it's about viewers on TV, and that's all that matters. But then, typically French, when you're not allowed to be in the stands, then there was thousands of fans outside for when the buses arrived. And inside. It was absolutely mental. Well, inside not so much. Inside is when you can have an authorization if you're there for work. So if you're there on a corporate duty, you can. Wow. I'm sure some clubs push it and stuff, but it's very limited numbers anyhow. No, a few thousand. They were allowed 800, so it's not huge numbers, but still it's a detail. But what I mean is that when you're not allowed to be in the stands, you're allowed to be outside the stands, and everybody was obviously, jumping up and down. When it's in open air, I think you might as well open it up, but it just pissed me off that clearly we decision makings in top 14 from time to time just come back to Canal Plus deciding what's more profitable for them rather than what's better for sport.
So should the LNR not be able to intervene there? Should it?
The LNR are tied by the nuts by a contract on the Canal Plus where they tell them, listen, we pay you X amount. And you know how happy they were to go just over that 100 million euros bar. And they renegotiated for another 4 or 5 years or something with Canal Plus for another 117, I think it is, or 119, I can't remember, but there's a little increase. So they're delighted. To be fair to them, I get angry with it, yes, but it's a matter of survival too. They're desperate to have Canal Plus behind them after COVID. They're desperate to have Canal Plus showcasing rugby, because you need rugby to become, in France, there was a massive drama a couple of seasons ago. It was just not inexplicable, but heartbreaking deaths of, 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, almost consecutively. I think in 6 months, there was about 3 absolute dramas. So rugby took a serious till in terms of, I think we spoke about it already, of moms not wanting to bring the kids. So there's that, plus COVID hits, you need, the top of the elite of sport to be shown the proper way. So that I understand. What annoys me is that after this year, where I'm sure loads of fans did not ask for their money back, it's a big old investment for them. They put 500 quid in the beginning of the season to get a season ticket. You expect to have something back. So that was just my little rant about it. But for the beauty of top 14, you're going to get Bayonne, Biarritz this weekend, which is just going to be mind blowing. There's 8 kilometers between the two towns, and Johnny will speak about it better than I do. 5,000 people will be allowed to go to the game because the curfew is lifted from today in France. But there's going to be 4,100 Biarritz tickets sold, 700 to Bayonne, and then 200 to the league or whatever it is. So it's just one of those situations where in France you better smile about it, you better laugh about it, because otherwise you spend a long time pulling your hair out and just not understanding things. But there's going to be a cracking game in Biarritz. There's going to be one hell of a game.
And we mentioned last week, Johnny, that the messages between the games, obviously all kicking off at the same time. You said you can't do anything about it, just focus on yourselves. Mm-hmm. At that Bayonne game, you were watching, were they getting the messages through from the Pau game?
Well, I think they understood sitting on a draw, they were sitting pretty. But ultimately, I'm not sure, like Pau obviously are going out all attack, trying to get 5 points on the board. You could tell. Whereas Bayonne almost looks like more of a defensive display. It was almost like kick long and on, keep the ball on the field, try and squeeze Stade Francais and make them play and work for penalties. It could look like a completely different type of game. So I'm not really sure that the messages would have been coming on, look, we're near enough in it, stick on a draw, that's good for us. Like ultimately they just wanted to stay down the other end of the pitch and stay away from danger out of their red zone, but they couldn't. They didn't really have the quality. I think they lost something like 7 lineouts. Their scrum was a little bit unstable, and they kept getting penalised in turnover, and they kept losing field position. So it was almost for them more of a question of survival as opposed to let's go and try and get 5 points on the board and smash the Stade Francais team. It was almost, can we survive this and get through? Because I don't think they really had the quality to stand up and smash or blitz this Stade Francais team off the pitch. So look, I'm not really sure how much the messages came on. It was more how much could they cling on and stay in the game, if I'm being completely honest from what I watched.
And then Benji, in the Clermont game, we mentioned it, Jules Lebaille, late penalty, that got La Rochelle the point they needed to finish above Racing on points difference and go straight through to the semi-finals. So, I mean, they obviously knew what they had to do and just scraped it, didn't they?
No, they knew 100%. To be honest, they came for the win. I think what Johnny is right is that for most teams, mostly, it was about themselves. So Bayonne should have beaten Stade Francais, right? That was the number one target. Forget about all the others, and then they didn't. So that's when you start counting, and which is a dodgy moment. It's the situation you don't want to be in. You want to be able to concentrate on yourself. You know exactly the situation that Clermont were. If they lost, they were out. If they won, they were definitely in. Forget about everybody else, and that's where you want to be. But no, for against La Rochelle, it was one of those games where I think La Rochelle weren't as adamant to win. I think they saw that basically that they could squeeze it. There was an element of Camille Lopez coming back for Clermont, who was absolutely instrumental, and hallelujah, he's back because he really helped a lot. And then it was just a hungry Clermont team. There's a hell of a lot of emotions. There's a few guys leaving. There's Franck Azema, his last at Marcel Michelin. They were absolutely livid for sure not to have a proper send-off because, you know, it's the whole thing in France where for the last home games, you have a proper ceremony to celebrate the guys that are leaving. And the clubs who do it the best are the ones with the best fans. Toulouse is special. Clermont is outstanding. Bayonne is special. And I was there. There's always been the special moments. You know, kids, families, everybody on the pitch. You get to have a little speech. There's a little emotional moment, whatever. That obviously was denied to all these guys that are leaving, the team 99 Williams and all the others. So and Peter Betham and all those guys. But a tough game. La Rochelle definitely knew what they needed to do last minute. I'm sure John O'Gibbs had his mobile phone on him, and they sneaked what they needed. But the most important thing is to see it the other way around. See that Clermont had one target, beat them, get qualified, and when they get everything right, they can be lethal. When they finally, it's not like Toulouse when they just can be unstoppable, but they need a bit more. They need to be 100%. And when they are 100%, they're a serious contender.
Your mate, who I've been critical of as well, was absolutely phenomenal, Morgan Parra. Again, sometimes when things aren't going quite well, you need somebody just to take the game by the scruff of the neck. And every single time that bloody bell went on Canal Plus, he was knocking over another conversion, another penalty, and he just was not missing. The guy was freakish. And again, your best players, you talked about him time and time again, Benji. Key moments, big games, big people stand up. And there he is again. Like, he was outstanding. And again,
Oh man, he's been like that for the last 6 weeks. I think the main click for him was that Wasp game in Champions Cup. The eighth of final, something like that. When he's on the bench, he comes for 20 minutes. Because it's not so much about, you know how it is in professional sport, or forget about professional sport, in a team sport. It's not so much about did the press see that I'm the proper leader. It's also getting the feedback and the belief from your team. You know, it's always like I've always found that it's so much more important that you know that, because Morgan is like that. Morgan will not be the guy to communicate to others and to lend a hand and have this nice, relaxed chat. He's got a dark cloud above his head, and when things are not going out, he will he will just demolish whatever's in front of him. When things are going well, he'll laugh about it, but he'll skip over everything that's bad. But what you need sometimes, you just need somebody, you're not really used to speaking to, and after a game like that, they say, a little blink, a little tap on the bum, and say, mate, you saved us. You saved us. And just those little feelings of interconnections of you owe me, I owe you. You do this for this team, I will bust my ass to make sure that I do it 10 times more. And that's how a team writes. That's leadership by example. And I think that's what he's done from those 20 minutes of the Wasp game.
And you called it, Johnny. Stade Francais snuck in to the final playoff spot with their win over Bayonne, but Castres did everything they could by hammering Toulon. And that result meant that not only did Toulon miss out on the playoffs, they also miss out on Champions Cup rugby for next season, don't they?
Yeah. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of uproar in French press at the minute about Toulon finishing in an 8th spot, and is Colazo's job safe? And questions are being asked the president. But I think you have to understand, this is a total rebuild from what Bougela left behind, which was short-term, bring in rock stars, paid loads of money, and then left. Colazo now has to rebuild a completely different team, and it's going to take time. And I think that was almost mirrored in their performance, and that some of what they did was outstanding. They went up 17-0. They were 17-0 up in Castres, and then just folded like a deck chair. Etzebeth was phenomenal. Baptiste Serin, again, was running things really well, but then they do one thing well and take 2 steps back, or they just don't seem to have that leader like Para that can grab something by the scruff of the neck, the game by the scruff of the neck, and get them through. And so they've still got work to do. And the president reiterated that Colazo was the man to stay. He's got a long-term contract. He's going to be there to 2024. But Castres were absolutely phenomenal. And at 17-0, like my old team, I'd also written them off. But one of my ex-teammates, Benji Urdabaleta, a little Argentinian who is smaller than you, Tim, like, he was absolutely magic. Like, I think he knocked over 20 plus points, scored 2 tries, cross-field kicks, just was central to everything that was good about the performance. And I think, again, like, I'm not sure now, Stade Francais have gone through, but I think that Castres don't have the same GIF problems. I think if Castres had snuck in 6, we all know what they can do when they finish 6. They're a really troublesome team for anyone in playoff stuff. And so Stade Francais now, again, can't play Nico Sanchez. I think they've lost Maestri. I think they've lost Bourbon. Kremer can't play because of GIF problems. They're going to be stripped of some serious people this weekend. And potentially Castres could almost have been the better team to go through. But Toulon were not right, not clicking, not functioning properly, and were made to look quite ordinary, which when you consider some of the people they have on the pitch is no mean feat, and Castres were actually exceptional. And look, there's all sorts of fallout afterwards, Benji. I'm not sure if you saw the bits with like the new Toulon president having a scrap with Patrice Colazo in the tunnel after the game, and it's just all sorts of fallout.
Allegedly. Nobody saw anything. But listen, I think for one, he's a president that the few times that I spoke to him, he seemed very, very relaxed and a very bright guy. Definitely not Bougela like. But when I heard that basically he came at middle of the halftime to have a chat with Colazo and stuff and tap him on the shoulder, and then his comment was, yes, because I spotted something from the stands or whatever he said. I'm like, all right, that's overstepping. That shouldn't be there. Patrice Colazo probably told him to bugger off because he's got a bit of emotion about him. Obviously, in the season that's not going well for Toulon. They got stuffed twice in Champions Cup, so they feel that they were les dindons de la farce. I'll let you translate that one, Johnny. But
all I got was farce, mate.
The turkey of the stuffing.
Oh, the turkey whatever. Stuffing.
You know how normally you stuff a turkey?
Yeah.
Where it's the other way around. You're the one getting stuffed, basically. So that's les dindons de la farce. That's the French impression. There you go, for free. See, you should have put that in your fucking test. I would have passed it. Not the what's the blue, the white, the red. What's the whatever. That was terrible.
I can feel a French phrases test coming up at the end of the season.
That was me. That was me from my whole studies, my whole high school. Don't blame my brain, just blame the questions. They're terrible. It's got nothing to do with me. It's always somebody else's fault. No, but I just wanted to raise a point. How flipping ridiculous is it that for the most important game of Stade Français season, not only they let go Gaël Ficou, who they're going to play next week with Racing, but they had Nico Sanchez and Kremer on the stands. Explain that one to me. Those laws are just rubbish. You can't do that then. This GIF thing about trying to apply it to who's on 15, then do just a normal rule of in your squad, 33 professional contracts, then you can have 10 non-GIF. That's it. No more of this, 1 week we need to actually, we need to rotate the team completely. They put all the espoirs on the bench. They get flogged by 60 points, but at least we got the percentage of our GIF up and we'll be okay for the rest of the season. And teams do it non-stop. Basically, it's the typical French thing of saying, if you pay this much tax, then it can help X, Y, and Z. Let's find the first thing we can do to pay less tax, right? Salary cap, just to make sure that everybody's going to respect everything. Boudjilal goes, right, I'm going to pay them 10 out of 100, but 90 will be a stay in first division bonus because bonuses were not in the salary cap. Boom, I gotcha. And it's always the same thing. GIF, they say, all right, we're going to do this GIF thing. Yeah, it's fantastic for all. It's for the common good. It's going to bring in some French stars, this and that. Half believe in it, half are like, oh, how are we going to stuff the system? The espoirs don't count as GIF. You can have them on the squad, but you don't need to play them. So it's exhausting to see that for the most important game, you can see those guys, not to mention that they're probably two huge contributors to that salary cap problem. And to be fair, I want to see Kremer on the pitch. He's a hell of a monster of an athlete. I want to see Nico Sanchez. He will probably be on the bench, but still, I want to see them. Those are the top players that you want to see playing week in, week out. So something needs to be done again to have some clearer rules.
What about making it like, for instance, I quite like England's rule. Yeah. If you're English qualified, you're in. What I don't get about France is you've got Georgians, Fijians that are GIF but can't play. So they qualify as GIF, but they can't play for the French team. So you're not really protecting the federation.
Because France were the country of human rights, because France were the country of freedom. And so whenever there's something, we spend days and hours and months and years questioning for the symbolic of the idea. And so whenever the English did that, then France basically applied that you need a French passport to play in the French team. So if you say French eligible, it technically means French passport holder, right? Which is illegal under the European Constitution or something. You can't block people from playing somewhere. It's like, what is it? Labor ins and outs in countries, and all those things. So, but the only people that can actually press charges are the player syndicate and the clubs. So you're scared of your own, and that's the only reason why they didn't do that rule and they decided to do the GIF one. And again, what do the first thing that French clubs do? What do? We'll sign the Georgian and the Fijian, which decide them younger. They'll be GIF. They don't decide, to have more GIFs on the field. So it's just exhausting.
A big blow, Benji, for Toulon to miss out on Champions Cup, isn't it?
Huge. Yeah. Huge. I met Patrice Colazo when I did the World Cup 2019 commentary, and he looks like a big old angry bear. He's actually, and I didn't know him at all, like not at all. He's a lot smarter, nicer, and just open-minded than I expected. He's a lovely bloke who's only been nice to me, and we had some proper rugby chats, and he knows, what he represents and how he comes across. I'm sure Christophe Furios is a little bit like that too, and I don't know him personally too, but. And then obviously there's my mate Julien Dupuis, who's a really close mate of mine. I really want them to do well. There's Ais Toyava, who's another close mate of mine. It's a beautiful spot, Toulon. I want this club to come back, but in a better way. I want the non-Boudjilal area to come back, not with 25 ex-British and Irish Lions in there or Southern Hemisphere sort of Super 15 type of club, but still with some genuinely good players. So I really want them to do well, but there's clearly something wrong, unfortunately. They're just cocking up weekend after weekend, up, down, lack of consistency. a lot of anger, a lot of disappointment, a lot of lack of attitude. They'll play fantastically well for 20 minutes and then completely go forgotten for 40. It's just not that high quality sort of that you need, because if you put the guys 1 to 15 that they have, they can stand toe to toe with absolutely any team in Europe. Seriously. If you go from 9 to 10, there's Serin Carbonel. There's only the little Gevrey Cordin. There's obviously Aistoyava, Maanonu, not the youngest, but still they can play. Sergio Parise, Eden Etzebeth, Romain Tao, Fifenua. Explain to me what pair of luck is bigger in Europe. I mean, there's nothing like it, really. There's the Gross de Lucet, who's very good. There's, what's his name? Hooker, they've got Def Facundo Issa, whatever, Charles Olivon, only the French captain playing number 6. There's who unfortunately did his ACL and he's going to be out for a while, poor thing. But so, yeah, huge disappointment. I really want them to be there. But again, that's why I hinted at the image that I had of the president and hearing that he went to tap on Patrice Colazo's shoulder. Imagine the last 40 minutes of this CAS game, the tension on the Toulon bench. Every second counts. They have the stake of the season on their shoulders. So obviously he needs to have a cool head. The last thing you want is a brilliant, brilliant businessman who to tap on your shoulder and speak to you. Oh, why did you not kick this? Well, I don't know what he said. Obviously, it's allegedly said, but I'm sure it's going to be some sort of comment like that because they want to know. These guys want to be informed. They want to be there. The other day I was watching, what's it called again? All In or Nothing. You know those Amazon sort of documentaries and stuff? All or Nothing. And I really like those documentaries. I'm a huge fan of I don't know NFL really well, but I like those things. And it's like Hard Knocks and all those things. And there's the one about Dallas Cowboys. And bloody hell, typically American. I think the training center cost $1 billion to build. I mean, it's something that just blows my mind. The stadium is out of this world.
And the owner, Jerry,
meeting, he's in every meeting.
Jerry Jones would get on well in the top 14, wouldn't he, Benji?
Mate, he just sits there in every meeting. You see the coach is like doing his coaching review, this and that. You see Jerry Jones. Yeah, so clearly that means we're lacking of consistency. I'm like, mate, you bought yourself to that chair. Get the fuck out of there. This is sport. This is not, don't get me wrong. These guys are genius at what they do, business. They obviously must know a thing or two about leadership, 150%, about personality, about drive, about passion, about growth, for sure. But not about sports, 100%. That's why you pay the big bucks to have good coaches. And they really, really reminded me that. So Toulon, unfortunately, like Johnny said, are a bit under stress. First question is like, is Colazo going to be sacked? Oh, no, but it's more than just a one season thing. We were building for the next 4 years, which was a good answer. So they're going to have a few little changes. My mate Aistoyava told me that he's not kept by Toulon. He might actually stay in the south of France and play in a little local club. I'll go and see him in the summer and I'll be delighted. I want him to stay there. Awesome. But yeah, it's still a lot of work, but still a very young, proper generation behind it, with a new academy that's pushing through, with a proper training center. I've got a soft spot, a sweet spot, a soft spot for this club. I want them to do well.
Well, as well as the final round of the top 14 season, last weekend saw the final of the Pro de Deux playoffs take place. And we now know that Perpignan are back in the big time next season. And we can have a chat now with a man who's hopefully been celebrating ever since Saturday. Perpignan back where Piula Faasolo joins us. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good to be with you guys, and thanks for tuning in, and thanks for letting me join the show.
It's great to have you on, and we won't beat around the bush. Talk us through the celebrations, and also for anyone who hasn't seen, forget Peter Aki and his goggles, forget Joe Takori and his corner flag. Talk us through that photo as well, the cigar and the trophy. Looked awesome.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where, at the end of the year, we've been working for 2 years now, and I think everyone's had a harsh year with the COVID. So and I just happened to be in the couloir, in the hallway there, just minding my own business, and I thought I made a promise to myself when I came to Perpignan. I bought a cigar and I said, when we go up to top 14, I'll enjoy myself and enjoy the moment. So and that's when I obviously had that cigar, and just happened to have the coffee at my feet, and it was quite fulfilling, and at the same time I felt weight off my shoulders, as in team going up, and it was an awesome feeling, and really, really proud of the boys and happy for the club.
Mate, congratulations. Congratulations. I thought you were inspired by The Last Dance. When I saw Michael Jordan in that changing room, and he's got that cigar and he's got that baseball bat. Remember that moment where he's like swinging it like that? And I'm thinking, this guy is the legend, like you've never seen before. But you mentioned something that's so important. I spoke to that. So, I'm good mates with Schul and stuff.
Yeah.
And he went there to bring his club sort of back to the top. How tough must have been you guys were on fire last year, right? You were ready to go. You were roaring. So it's how incredibly tough, and how did the big boys step up to get the boys still motivated back in the summer and all that? It hasn't been a year. It's been 24 months of struggle. And when you know that you've got happiness just there and you see him just slipping out of your hands, so I'm sure when you get it, the cigar was just even sweeter.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I honestly thought last year we were on our way up, and we were favorites to come up that year. And well, obviously everyone's had a bad year with COVID, and you got to roll with the punches as they come. So and I think for us personally, it was maybe a blessing in disguise as an extra year to prepare and to get the team a bit prepared for top 14, and hopefully when we do go up, we can stay up.
You will, mate. And now we know the story behind that photo. It's even cooler. I've never looked that cool in a photo, so I'm not even going to try. But P, talk us through what's been happening since the win, because you look surprisingly fresh. I'm surprised at how good you look. Talk us through what's been happening. How good were the celebrations? What have you been up to?
So it's been awesome. Obviously after the game, we stayed in the changing room for a bit. Just to appreciate obviously the win, and have some time just the boys and the club itself and coaches. So that was cool. Came back to Perpignan, and you obviously probably seen the videos with all the supporters with the flares and going crazy. So they were all waiting back for us at the stadium and chanting and whatnot. And we all stayed at the stadium until about, I'd say about 7 in the morning. A little break, come home, quick shower, beach bar Sunday. Just the formalities after that. It was good to we were at the beach bar till about roughly about 2, and then it was nice. We had a family day with the club, so all the families came and we all were at a must together and had brunch together, and we enjoyed the moment together. And then obviously we cooked on again, and the boys are still going. They're still going right now at the beach bar. So.
And who's lead? I was going to say, who's leading the charge? Because we spend a lot of time on here talking about Joe Takori, who I know is a man you know very well.
I must say, Shuli's in there, man. He's in the run, man.
But that's the question. So that's the question. On a full-on week session, if you have to follow Joe or you have to follow Shul, who do you reckon will win? Well, that's a big one.
That's a big one, man. Because I must say, surely he's leading the charge right now, and he's on the, my friend's going off the hook now, and he's on the cases of the boys of like, where are you? Like, on a champion or pas, So, so he's so he's definitely. But the boys are, they're enjoying themselves, which is pretty good. It's well deserved, and it's good to finally, like I said, it's like a weight off the shoulder of the boys. So.
We had Damien on the podcast before, and he was telling us all about how he used to look after Benji on nights out. So when you get back to the party, you can tell him that it's Benji's fault. Blame Benji.
Yeah, it's fine. I owe him a few.
I bet you do, man. That man. Honestly, that guy is he's a man with the man with context. That guy. Context. So he's well connected.
Yeah.
And
so Pete, how does it I was going to ask, how does it compare? Like, you've won pretty much everything. You've now won it with Cast, you've won it with Toulouse, you won top 14 twice. Now the Pro D2, how does it feel? Is it almost, you talked about a feeling of expectation, but in terms of celebration, the feeling and the lift and the weight off your shoulders, is this one almost sweeter than the other ones, or how does it compare?
I think there's just different scenarios, but I think everyone questioned me when I left Toulouse and I came, obviously to a Pro D2 club, and kind of like, obviously I was other clubs were after me and stuff like that. But I think for me it was in a way to give back to rugby and to give back to French rugby and the whole ambition of the club and the history of Perpignan itself, rugby wise, kind of pulled me towards to come here. So this one really, it was really like hard on my shoulder and something we really worked hard for. And it's a really humble club, and I quite like that. Everything's quite humble. Don't get me wrong. There's the clubs like Toulouse and Clermont, with the state of the art facilities and training stuff, but it's quite humbling coming to Perpignan, and changing rooms is just like a container, and you go to training and everything's simple, and then like the gym is in a little chapiteau in a tent, so it's quite humbling in that sense, and you take things for granted, and I quite enjoyed the experience, and the aim was to get the boys up, and we did, and we fulfilled this objective. So I would say this one's pretty up there.
Well, you say it's humbling, but it's fair play to, again, to speak about La Choule and speak about yourself. It's one thing to go to second division. It's another, especially as a forward, to keep on grafting week in, week out and putting your body on the line after taking all those knocks and being used to, you use the Toulouse fans, you use all those big stadiums to get yourself psyched, right? So when you go through 24 months of second division with hardly anybody in the stands, sometimes playing in the mud, sometimes playing in the snow and all that stuff, and still, putting your body on the line first, leading by example, really, and not at your peak physical state, of your career. It's also credit to what they spotted in you as blokes, and just credit to how much you're ready to do it. But well, enough for the blowing smoke up your ass. But how many? Who are we meant to look out for now? Because I've seen some pretty incredible young players for Perpignan, especially that little, what's his name?
Fullback.
Melvin Jaminet. Is that him?
Good,
Is that his name? Bloody, he looks like nothing. He is lightning fast. He's like a little, what's his name? Mackenzie, like the Chiefs fullback.
I definitely, I'd say he's quite like Mackenzie style, as in his style of running, and he's got a heck of a boot on him. You can count on him 50 meters out, for points. There's also Sasha, our Lucid Prop, our young Lucid Prop, who's in
Sasha Lachaud.
Yeah, exactly. There's Veve, Velat, Hoka. There's quite a few players coming through Perpignan through the grades, which are promising for French rugby and for Perpignan itself. So, like I said, it's a stepping stone. And like Melvin, I'm sure there's a lot of. I think there's been a few French players that have come from Port-de-Deux and been picked up from top 14 teams and now playing for France itself. So it's a big stepping stone now. And I used to play. I was with La Rochelle when they were first in Port-de-Deux, and we did the first Monte on top 14 with La Rochelle, and the standard of Port-de-Deux wasn't the same. That was about yonkers ago, about 13 or 14 years ago. But, the standard was obviously there'll be 3 or 2 teams that are kind of like sure to come up, whereas now Port-de-Deux, there's a few teams that are active, down to the maybe top 8, top 7 that are quite decent enough to come and play in top 14. Yeah. So the standard's really gone up now, which is pretty good for French rugby.
Yeah, it's awesome. P, I want to talk you quickly, ask you about, you mentioned La Rochelle, your first stint, but you came over when you were 19, 20?
Yeah, 19, 18 and a half, 19.
And I don't think many people know the story, but you came over, your Mrs. Helen was pregnant with twins.
Yeah,
correct?
So we just had the twins.
And so, like, how does that move come around? Like, you move to New York and then get picked up, go to La Rochelle, age 19, you're leaving home. Like, I know from speaking to, like, mates of mates that you were on a pathway and you were set to go and do whatever most people do in New Zealand. You were tipped for the top, but you made that decision really young to come over to France. What was it, age 19, 20, that made you think, I'm going to give this a crack with twins, which is even crazier? And it's amazing where you are now. Like, you've one of the best examples of blokes that come over and graft and work hard and buy in, an awesome teammate. But talk us through the initial steps of coming over, how it came about and why it happened.
First of all, I've been lucky, so I would just say that's what it is. But like, short story short, Wednesday I got a call from an agent. He told me La Rochelle was interested. I said, yeah, whatever. Send me a contract. Friday, I got the contract. I said, it was okay. Saturday, he sent me a contract. I said, okay, I'll sign it. Sunday, I signed it. I said, the club asked, when could I be here? I said, whenever you want. My expectation was in the next few weeks. They're like, Wednesday, you're on the plane. It all happened.
So, mate, so how, like, we know each other's missuses. How did that go down with Helen? Talk me through how that conversation went.
I was like, look, this is us. Either right away or, and I was lucky enough. She wrote it with me, and she's letting me live my dream, and she's been there next to me that whole way through. So it's been awesome, yeah. And obviously, I think obviously New Zealand, there's a whole lot of selection of players, and that there's so much depth that maybe they get caught up in that bubble of being with the All Blacks or being in a Super 14, Super 15 or 15, 14 team, that they kind of lose spectrum of what the world might hold, as in like top 14, the Premiership. So that instant, then I was just like, this opportunity came up, and I thought I'll take it with two hands and grab it and go and run with it and see what happens. So, and that's I was lucky enough to have the opportunity, and I don't take things for granted, and I'm quite lucky in that way, and I'm just humbly thankful that it's turned out all right.
More than all right, mate.
Yeah. It's turned out pretty well, and you're obviously at Perpignan next year. You're going to stay in France in the long term?
In the long term, probably not. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or no one does, but at the moment I've got one more year in Perpignan, and then we'll see what happens after that. So the long run, initially I'd like to go back to the islands. That's where my heart is, and whenever you're free, you just come visit me in the islands, have that beer in your hand and enjoy the sunset on the beach.
We're already booked, mate. You sold us.
Just quickly, we're talking about the celebrations now, and you're basking in the glory, looking forward to being back next season. But you talk about how big a club Perpignan is. Obviously, there was an attraction for you going there, even though they're second tier. Going into that final at the weekend, I think you finished 16 points ahead of Biarritz at the end of the regular season. So talk to us about the build-up. There must have been a real sense of pressure going into that game, though.
Yeah, not to take anything away from Biarritz, man, but they obviously played a heck of a quarter, played a decent semi at Van and won that game. And then obviously coming into the final, they're quite hot, and they had a good run of, like, I think they won the last 6 games on the trot. And it's been, like I said, it's been a process of 24 months. And I've been with this group for 2 years now, and we've been working. This is what we've been working for, and these moments don't come often. So I think I just said to the boys, you got to take it with 2 hands and run off it and grab it. And if you want it, you got to go get it. No one's gonna hand anything to you. So, and that's what it was. And I was quite happy that we started off slow, but we finished strong. So that's a good thing. It shows that we're an 80-minute team, and I'm quite happy. I'm quite proud of the boys and happy about that.
Do you think, strangely, Pete, it might actually have galvanized you and given you another year of prep to be ready? Like, almost if you'd gone up last year, it might have been harder, but the fact that you've been able to add some depth to your squad, a couple of young kids have had some decent experience, they've come through, like, almost watching your games this year, I reckon if you guys had played a head-to-head, or for whatever reason, if you'd ended up in the playoff game against Bayonne or Po, you would have beaten them. It's like, we talk about the difference in top 14 and Pro D2, but I think what you have in terms of quality in your squad and the way you play together and the way you scrap it out, you're probably better than those bottom 3 teams in top 14 already. And that's air, because we can't prove it, but you're going to be there next year. But for me, what I see is a team that's ready, definitely, and was sort of head and shoulders above the rest. And you've come up, that's first place, absolutely granted. My question I want to ask you now is, having played against Biarritz, who now are getting Bayonne at home, knowing both sides, having watched a lot of top 14, how do you see that one going? Because if it was you guys, I'd say easy. But now it's a slightly different kettle of fish. How do you see that game going between Bayonne and Biarritz?
To be honest, I think that game's going to be a lot of emotion. You know, I think quietly people were hoping that it'll be Bayonne and Biarritz kind of thing. You know, because I think that derby people haven't seen it in a while. You know, and obviously we're having spectators now. It's gonna add a lot of flame to that game as well. So I don't know. I mean, I find it quite hard. I think there'll be a lot of emotions in that game leading up to it. And for me, Bayern, not to take anything away from Biarritz, but Bayern might have an upper hand just because they've been in top 14 and they've been in that grind and trying to, you know, grind out games. You know, they won in Toulouse a few weeks ago. They're playing some decent rugby. They've just had, unfortunately, some bad results. But, you know, top 40 rugby is always, it's just details, you know, and details and precision. So, yeah, I find it hard. Yeah, so I'd put my hand on Bayonne just because of the experience-wise. And obviously, you used to play there, Johnny. So
Thanks, mate.
Well, fortunately, you don't have to worry about that one. You can go back and enjoy the celebrations now. I think Benji's just had a text off Damien Chuli, so we better let you get back to the beach bar.
Mate, you enjoy it. It's well earned, well deserved. The best moments, everything that I miss about rugby is back of a winning bus, and La Choule wasn't really far. So I'm sure he'll take care of you well, and it's well earned beers. And congratulations to all.
hey, Friday we're off to eat pizza, so
Oh
Yes.
it's a good weekend.
Awesome.
Oh my word,
Mate, enjoy. Love to the family. Great to see you, P.
Love to everyone's families, and thank you for having me.
Take care.
Cheers, mate.
Boys,
Cheers, Piula.
Cheers. Bye.
Great to have him on and taking time out from the party, eh?
I've never seen a man looking so fresh that far into the year's biggest party. But then I played with P at Cast, and we talked about La Choule and we talked about Joe Takori, but P also can, mate, you can't knock him over. He could just keep going for days, and he's just a big force tranquille, both on the pitch and off. Lovely guy, big bloke, works really hard. We didn't really get into it, but he was sort of set on a pathway. There's like a network that picks you up to head towards becoming an AB. And he was well down that path, and he chose to do something different. But he is just one of the nicest blokes and one of the best teammates that you could ask for. Just like a lovely big guy, quiet, genuine, works hard, never pisses or moans, which is really rare in a rugby environment. And just gets on, always positive, always chirpy. And yeah, he looks, I can't believe how fresh he looks. But I think that's probably all about to change if Shuli's about to get hold of him, getting back at the beach bar. So good luck to P. And also we didn't mention either, but I think as well, the next World Cup coming up, he'll be 35. I think he'd love to get to that World Cup and finish there. Represent Samoa again, another World Cup in France would be a dream finish for him. But just a lovely bloke. Great for him to come on. And again, talk through his decisions to go to Perpignan, all for the good reasons. He's just a lovely bloke. Great man.
He's one of those really tough cookies, to be honest, that is renowned in top 14 for being hard-hitting grafter. So at first he played 6 and he would compete for every single ball you could possibly see. Then he would support the team and play lock when needed. And like you said, it's written on his forehead. He's that hard grafting, give everything for the team. And then we'll see, forget about me, forget about my body, forget about my happiness. It's all about the team. And just the fact that he said that he's lucky.
Mate,
you're trying to say that at 19 he took a ballsy decision, won all those titles, played really well, has been loved in every club that he went to, and considering that he comes from miles away, and then he says, oh yeah, I was really lucky. So it speaks a lot of the genuine bloke that he is.
but he is probably one of the best success stories. I can't think of many people. Like he's won the Pro D2 once with La Rochelle when they first came up. He's won the top 14 twice. He's won the Pro D2 and got another club up to top 14. There's not many blokes that have achieved what he's achieved. And we always talk about what type of personality does it take to come over to France and be a success. And he is that prototype, like really strangely, but could play second row, back row and just worked his ass off and was one of the best teammates I came across. Like outstanding bloke. And look, it wouldn't surprise me. Again, a lot of people cling on and want to do different things, but he said, even when we were at Cast, he was like, nah, once rugby's done, I've loved my time here. But get me back to the islands. You can come visit whenever you want, but he's never going to change. A great big guy. Love P.
And we mentioned the Biarritz Bayonne derby coming up this weekend with him. You would have been playing the last time those two played against each other, wouldn't you, Johnny?
I think I was injured for the last two. Bayonne haven't won one in a couple of years. So when the last time they're in Pro D2 together, Biarritz won home and away. So there's a little bit of added pressure. And look, on paper, I think P's right in that Bayonne should win. Yannick Brew's been in the press this week talking about, look, if we stick to technically, defensively, and our attitude, what we've done this year, we should win this game. And they should. The problem is it's the Basque derby and it's absolute mayhem. It's not like any other game. It's no holds barred, roll your sleeves up and just go at it for 80 minutes. There's no structure. It's just an absolute shit fight. So Bayonne should win. The fact that the stadium isn't full helps Bayonne as well. There's 3K to travel between the towns. But Bayonne really need to get hold of the rugby. Like, as I mentioned, they lost 7 lineouts at the weekend. The scrum wasn't stable. Biarritz have got a decent set piece. I think more generally, Bayonne should be more dense. Defensively should be better. They should be used to a higher level of intensity and rhythm. Biarritz, on the other hand, would probably have 3 or 4 game breakers that Bayonne don't have. They've got Steph Armitage, who causes absolute carnage. They've got Francis Saili, and they've got Henry Spate. They've got 3 or 4 athletes that can cause real danger. But I think if Bayonne manage to shackle those 3 or 4 blokes and turn it into an arm wrestle, they should win. But look, having been part of these games, it can also become a complete coin toss. That's the strange thing. When you get into a stadium in Biarritz with 5,000 Biarritz fans screaming at you, mentally things start to ping and things start to go off-piste, shall we say. So look, it's a huge game, but ultimately it's a 50-50. But as I said, Bayonne should win the game. Absolute dogfight, but they should win.
And let's have a look ahead to the barrage now in the top 14 this weekend. Paris Derby on Friday night at the La Défense Arena, isn't it, Benji? So how do you see that one going?
Just crazy. So it's the same way that I was going to tell you that for the Bayonne Biarritz game, I never thought that the loser of the final of Pro D2 could ever beat the 13th of top 14, right? I never thought about it, except it's actually that the opposite. 13th of top 14 has never beaten the finalist of Pro D2 since this thing arrives. I would never even think about it, but where Johnny says it, it's because you normally play it where you always play it, and you normally play it at the ground of the the loser of the second division final. Yeah. So there's that home advantage, and guys are tired, X, Y, and Z. However, I would see, like Johnny said, Bayonne are just a little bit ahead. Let's not forget, Bayonne, it's pretty cruel for them. They're potentially getting relegated, where they ended up 13th by winning one more game than both Brive and Pau. Right? They have one more victory, equal with Brive and winning one more than Pau. So that's harsh, right? That means there's a bonus here and there that really slips out of your hand, and they lose the final game by 3 points. So I see them going through. But now, if you concentrate on others, there's also the form, and Racing are hot. Racing have got Gaël Ficou, and Stade Français are just coming a little bit out of breath. So Johan Maestri, I think, fractured his cheekbone or his nose. I can't remember. He's going to be out for days. Antoine Bourbon, the big old second row, who you think the second row, number 6, you think he's 40 years old because he was there when I started with Stade 2007, but he's that hard grafting machine that's always there, and he brings that rough physicality. And I think, I don't know from the inside, but I'm pretty sure Gonzalo Quesada would have replicated the 2015 era where he was absolutely instrumental at number 6, and he would have wanted to use them. He's a freak of nature. And have Nico Sanchez potentially. So I don't know if this G rule is still going to apply.
Yeah, it does.
But then that's properly shooting them in the foot. So I reckon Racing will see them even full team, full tilt. I still see Racing be the better team, but I would have never called a million miles away that 4 months ago Stade Français were going to qualify, and that team dynamic is just so huge. Right, being on a roll, being positive, being connecting to the other. I don't know. I always read the team celebrations post victory or the team disappointment post defeat as a real big thing. And when you see what Stade Français are doing at the moment, you see the Latou, the Australian hooker, who you feel he's been there for 10 years. There's a real connection between those guys. There's something special about it, and that can take a team a long, long way. That being said, they would need all their boys, all their warriors, or their pink warriors on the field, and that's not going to be the case. So I see Racing being stronger than them.
I agree. And to go back to your Bayonne Po Brive point, Bayonne won 10 games, Po won 9, and Brive won 11. Montpellier won 10 as well, and they finished 10th. But the difference with Bayonne is that they had a points difference of minus 231. They got absolutely humped. Like, they didn't pick up any bonus points, nothing on the trot. They either won well away from home and scraped a few extra, but they weren't close in so many of the games, and that's what their D effectively undid them. But yeah, my question is, back to the sort of scandal around the transfer of Gaël Fickou, do you think he's made the right choice? Like, can you imagine now if he dots down a hat trick, how miserable and how cruel it's going to be for the Stade Francais boys that have lost their teammate for the last 3 months, and it's him that ends up burying them? Like, it's just crazy. But I agree with you, Benji, in terms of the quality, in terms of the way they played against Brive, the quality, the depth they have, even the bench. You've got Finn Russell, Vakatawa, Fickou running the show. I just think they'll have too much. But again, that bit that you can't see or feel or touch, that thing that is so important in France, I think it's more important than it is in Britain, that feeling and the group dynamic. Once you get on a roll, it's really hard to break. And I think that's where Cast had that little thing when they finished 6th and snuck in and had an absolute high and went the whole way twice. Potentially that's Stade Francais. And I think not that it would be justified, but for them to go and beat Racing with Gaël Fickou in the opposition team would be huge for them. Like, can you think of the feeling that would have been like to see one of your best players leave, to feel kind of abandoned by your sporting director, by your president, and then to turn around and beat him and the team that he signed for, and them also be your domestic rivals, your derby rivals, your Parisian rivals, would be pretty special. So look, that's going to be a huge game. Again, you would say Racing should pip it, but like, we've seen some crazy things in French barrage over the years, so should be an outstanding game.
And can Clermont do it away in Bordeaux, Benji?
Bordeaux are clear favorites, but again, I never would have seen that Toulouse beat them at home for the last game. And like I said to you, if Clermont are 150% committed to what they want, they can be very, very hard to handle. So Bordeaux are definite favorites. However, I believe that Clermont are capable of doing it. I still believe, unfortunately, that for them, because I really like this club, that Bordeaux, just there's something not clicking at the moment. They've been having a few, complicated, disappointing performances. I don't know what happens, but they just lost it a little bit along the way. Remy Lamra, my former teammate and a good buddy of mine, said after the Toulouse game, "J'ai rien vu." I saw nothing good. There was nothing. And to play that before the most important game of the season, before the equivalent to the quarterfinal, is quite worrying. However, Clermont will need an exceptional performance to get there. But if they click everything together, they can make it. So Bordeaux favorites, my heart says that Clermont can do it potentially.
Johnny?
See, I know Remy as well. I played with Remy at Cast, and he can be quite overly emotional at times. He's a very emotional player, and he says what he's feeling in that instant. And I understand where he's coming from. It's a tough loss, but look, they've come so far. The rugby they've thrown together over the past 6 months, year, 2 years even, has been exceptional. And I just think with Christophe Urios there, with the bunch of players they've got, it's their time. I just think another step up, another level. And unfortunately for Clermont, I think that means losing in Bordeaux this weekend. And again, with Christophe, you never know, like, having worked with him as well, there's so much that gets said in the press, but then as soon as he leaves, that media situation comes into the change room, there's a completely different tone, a completely different voice given, and much more reasonable, and he'll be straight into building them back up, because they've got the biggest challenge for some of them of their careers this week. So look, I think they've been too good over the past 12 months, 24 months to throw it all away, and I think that they could probably sneak a little win against Clermont this weekend.
I could do with a boost in my bank balance, Johnny. So score predictions for both of these?
I reckon the awesome thing about La Défense Arena is that it's such a fast deck. So I could see this being a crazy high-scoring game. Again, I'm almost going to go like 35-24 for Racing. And then it's also meant to be 28 degrees this weekend everywhere. So I'm also
not in the U Arena.
It'll be 22 degrees.
22.
22 all the time.
It's 22 all the time, mate. It's never going to change.
And Bordeaux, I'm going to say Bordeaux 27, Clermont 22.
Come on, Benji, redeem yourself.
I don't know, mate. That's just, I don't know, because I'm not betting on the Bordeaux-Clermont one. I'm just going to skip that one. And the Racing Toulouse, I'll go tighter, but I agree with Johnny. Playing inside, fast-paced, two teams who like to chuck the ball around. 33-30 for Racing.
We will see. Can't wait to watch those on Premier Sports this weekend. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Benji. And a big thanks to all of you guys for listening as well. Make sure you hit subscribe. Leave us a nice review as well if you can. And we will be back with another episode next week. Au revoir, guys.
Cheers.
See you, boys.